Deep in Minnesota's North Woods, we hunt down finicky panfish in search of big bites.
I'm gonna go around them and drill on the outside.
Using forward-facing sonar, we'll show you the art of a fish drive.
Hey, I'm Tony Roach. Welcome back to Dialed In Angling. This week, we're in northern Minnesota exploring backwoods lakes. There's so many of these lakes that are tucked away back in the woods that dot the landscape of the entire state. I love exploring these lakes throughout the winter months. We're gonna show you how we get dialed in on catching panfish on these lakes and how you can do the same. Joining with me today is Travis Frank and Pat McSherry, a couple good buddies of mine. You know, when you get to a small lake, I can't emphasize it enough, ice safety. Doesn't matter if it's December, January, February, March, April, we're always checking the ice. We haven't been here yet this year, so we're just checking as we go, and it's always the best bet.
There's a bunch of them there, but they're moving fast.
Yeah, they're from 30 to 70. I think what I should do is I'm gonna go around them and drill on the outside and come around the backside, and we'll try to do a little fish drive, yeah.
Every step you take is affecting what the fish are doing. It's like if you drill towards me, they're coming my way right now.
Yeah, pretty common. I mean, you know, they're spooky, they're panfish. We're in a real shallow basin situation. We're just gonna have to rely on fish drives and staying quiet and waiting for the fish to come to us at times.
Right now, they're halfway between the two of us.
All right, I'll just start drilling in a circle here.
Every step he takes. They're about to leave the screen because he's walking. Watch, now they're gone. Oh! I mean, they're just from 30 feet to about 60 feet. There's a school of fish. They're coming this way. There's quite a few fish down there right now. Now they're 20 feet. Oh, even watching you walk right now, they're gone. We have a lot of holes now, so you know, maybe we have one or two of us ready, and then we can just keep the fish drives coming, keep the fish moving, and see if we can get them once they see the bait and say, you know what, I'll grab that on my way through.
Yeah, I'm going straight plastic. I'll go probe jig, mustache jig. I think you and Pat are gonna do a little live bait.
Yeah, this is the larvae jig right here.
Oh, I love that thing, that giant eye on there.
Eye on that, yeah, that's a big deal. So we'll see which one is firing, and then we can all adjust, right?
Oh, they're already moving.
Tony, I'm going stealth mode here.
Decent fish, Trav. Crappie. Yeah, nice fish, Trav, probably 12-incher. Beauty on the plastic. I'm a plastics guy. I don't care if it's open water, on ice. I love plastics. You know, there are times where I'll switch to live bait, but I almost always start with the plastics, and then my natural progression is to switch to live bait. So if I see a few fish come up, they won't strike, boom, I'll switch over to live bait. But like I said, my go-to is that little probe jig. I love it. It comes in great colors. It's got those great UV colors. It fishes really heavy. Nice fish. Let me get this one back in. Hey, you're gonna wanna stay tuned. When we come back, we're gonna break down how we go about getting on top of these spooky panfish in shallow water basins. Wow, this is definitely not a panfish, Travis. Largemouth. Look at the size of that largie.
Dude!
Dialed In Angling, brought to you by Strike Master, VMC Hooks, Rapala, and Suffolk's.
We are back. You are watching Dialed In Angling. We are in northern Minnesota chasing bluegills and crappies on a real remote lake. We walked through the woods to get here. I'm fishing with a couple buddies, Pat McSherry and Travis Frank. You know, these fish are super spooky in this shallow basin, so we're working on doing some fish drives. We're getting the forward-facing sonars out in front of the guys, and I'm just drilling these fish towards these anglers. I'm gonna show you exactly what we're doing. You can do this as well if you're dealing with spooky panfish. We're gonna show you how to do fish drives.
There's a school of fish, basically between you and I. They're heading my way.
We have a ton of panfish in this basin, but as we're moving and walking, these fish are spooking. They're moving around from hole to hole, so really I'm just kind of drilling on the outside of the guys right now, trying to push fish to them.
50 feet this way.
Okay. We have fish on our forward-facing sonars anywhere from 30 to 90 feet, so I'm just trying to get these fish a little bit closer to them. I don't want to drill too close to them and spook that school past them, but as you can see, the guy's already starting to hook up on fish.
Oh, I got a bunch here.
Yeah, nice fish. Like you said, nice gold color.
Yeah.
Whew, another goldie.
Oh, I just missed one looking at yours. Oh, here it comes.
There we go.
Nice.
Doubled up.
Look at you.
Another crappie.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, a lot of these shallow basin lakes, it's like that, where the crappies are kind of higher in the water column. The gills tend to be a little bit lower. You can usually tell by the mood of the fish. You know, the crappies are a lot more racy in the water column chasing your bait, versus the gills, you know, they'll just come in slow and steady.
It feels like it's 20 pounds, but on this light line,
Right.
Oh yeah, bass. Look at there. A bonus Northwoods fish right there.
Hey, I think the most underappreciated fish on ice is the largemouth bass. They're so fun to catch.
Just completely full of fish.
Here he comes. There he is. He definitely took the second bite. You know, you feel those gills, they come up and they hit it once. You gotta wait for that second little nab. Oh, not terrible. They're flighty in the water column. The gills come up really slow and just kind of tap that rod tip and then take that second bite. You gotta wait for that second little nab. There we go, man.
There it is.
Hey, you're gonna wanna stay tuned, because when we come back, we're gonna have more insight how we track down these panfish in these shallow water basins. You're watching Dialed In Angling.
Did you know that the knot that you choose to tie to your lure can actually determine if a fish wants to eat it? Yeah, I've got 3 different knots tied to the exact same lure today, and I'm at the Rapala official test tank to show you what each of these lures look like. This is a VMC nymph jig, very popular for panfish, crappies, sunnies, perch, and I have 3 different knots. I have a standard fisherman knot, I have a Rapala knot, and I have a double polymer knot. Now the first one that I want to show you is the double polymer knot. And as you can see here, the eye is on the top of this jig, meaning that we want it to hang horizontally here, not vertically. So this knot does a really good job at holding it in the position that you want. Now, when I put this down in the water and take a look at it, I can see that it bounces, and the bait actually does a pretty good job of doing a circle here, and it stays horizontal. If I look at the Rapala knot, this one here allows this lure to move freely. It's not actually connected to the knot. The knot is up here. And what this allows the bait to do is have whatever action it wants the bait to have in the water. When I put it down, I can see that it actually doesn't make the big loop circles. It holds it in place and the bait kind of wiggles down there. I get a lot of action out of the plastic. The last knot here is a standard fisherman's knot. Now, this one you can try to move the knot where it holds on the bait, but what I found a lot of times is after you catch a fish, all of a sudden the knot is pointing up, and now your bait is a vertical presentation. Why does it matter? Well, in a fish's world, whatever it thinks this is, whatever creature it's come to eat, if it doesn't look natural, sometimes they will swim up to it and then swim away. We want them to swim up to it and eat it. So adjusting your cadence is one way to trigger a bite. Adjusting the knot that you tie onto the lure is another way. If that fish comes up and does not eat it, I immediately start switching up the knots on the bait, and then I go to switching up the lure. Little details can make a big difference when you're ice fishing.
Dialed In Angling. Brought to you by Strike Master, VMC Hooks, iFish Pro Tip-Ups, and Suffix.
Hey everybody, Bill Shirk in with this week's Dialed In Angling Ice Report. We want to get right to northern Minnesota, where there was a pretty big rescue mission on Red Lake this week. Brian Beef Sather's keeping an eye on things. Brian, what the heck happened up there?
Well, we had some strong winds come up in the late afternoon, early evening hours, and caught some anglers off guard. People ventured out on the north end of the lake, got up to still 10, 11 inches of water or on ice, and the wind blew it open, so they had to go out and be rescued. Great rescue services, great work by them guys to help get the anglers off the ice, and everyone got off fine.
Glad to hear that everyone is safe. Meanwhile, transitioning to Lake of the Woods, you have a satellite image behind you.
We're constantly monitoring ice, checking for where the open water is, seeing where the ice heaves are blowing in, and the ice guides are working super hard up here right now, checking ice every day, and the guys that are venturing out and the resorts are open now, they're catching fish. So Lake of the Woods is starting to heat up, but there's still a lot of questionable ice in areas. Make sure you go through a resort or a bait shop.
We're headed over to South Dakota where Marcus Quam. What is this weather doing to us?
It's not, it hasn't helped the ice fishermen at all. I mean, we've had a couple nights or mornings where it's froze, but we still had some nights where it hasn't been freezing. Very limited access on where a guy can get out and go. Everybody's being very cautious, and there's not much for fishing going on right now.
What's your forecast look like?
Horrible. This is the worst I've ever seen. I mean, I'm looking at canceling some trips here after Christmas now just because this next week looks bad.
Well, hang in there, have a good Christmas, and we'll check in next week with you. We're getting a little good news from Wisconsin, where over in the Hayward area, some of the smaller lakes have finally locked up and a few people are getting out. But you go further east over to Green Bay, and this unprecedented warmth has Captain Adam Rasmussen scratching his head. What is up?
Extended forecast is still very warm. January 1st is finally supposed to be below freezing.
Have you guys ever had warmth like this?
It's like this every year, to be honest. We have so much water around here, and that water, right now the water is 39 degrees, so that keeps everything else warm. You can drive west, 70, 80 miles, and it's 15 degrees colder there. But all this warm water keeps the heat here, and we're just trying to get that water cooled off, and then she can start making ice.
There you go. Man, we are pounding them. We're in northern Minnesota on a backwoods lake catching panfish. We're gonna break down each of our techniques and how we go about finesse fishing panfish.
There he is. The old up bite. Yeah, decent little crappie.
There you go.
Like Tony was saying, these fish are just out here roaming in this school, and they are super spooky. So You can actually use that a little bit to your advantage, like he was saying, and spook them towards your buddies.
Okay, Tony, so there's a bunch of fish 80 feet and then this way. So if you drill there, you should push them to Pat and I this direction. Yep, right there. Right now there's a couple hundred fish between the three of us. They're moving this way. So Pat and I should have a lot of opportunities here in just a second.
Oh yeah, I got some coming into my hole. Nice fish.
They're piled in over here underneath Pat. There's several hundred in the school right here.
Well, it's a nice crappie. Nice crappie, there we go. It's one of the ones we're after right there.
Panfish are notoriously finesse feeders at times. My setup today is pretty standard. I use this a lot. And it's this type of rod right here where you've got heavy backbone but a really light, soft tip, so I can see every little strike indication, but also I'm getting good hook setting power with those light tungsten jigs. I'm using a plastic today, but regardless of whether you're using plastic or live bait, you have to have that entire system. That really light pound test, whether it's 2, 3, 4 pound test. But when you're using it, I like to use a monofilament, especially when I'm out hole hopping. I like Suffolk's Advanced Mono. I use it a lot for a lot of different species when I'm outside hole hopping. But what I like about Advanced Mono is there's very little stretch. You also don't get that coiling in your line, so you can feel everything with that bait, and plus you have total control over that bait. So that's my setup today. The guys have something pretty similar. We're bouncing back and forth, and guess what? We're putting panfish on the ice as a result. There we go, Pat, fish on. Hey, you're gonna wanna stay tuned, because when we come back, we're gonna break down how we fine-tune our techniques to put more panfish on the ice. Nicely done, boys. Welcome back to Dialed In Angling. We're gonna show you how we get dialed in on catching panfish on these lakes and how you can do the same.
There's a bunch of them there, but they're moving fast.
I'm gonna go around them and drill on the outside and come around the backside, and we'll try to do a little fish drive, yeah.
Every step you take is affecting what the fish are doing. These fish, like if you drill towards me, they're coming my way right now. There's a lot of fish under you. That's the most I've seen today.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, check this out.
Yep, go ahead. Not a monster. There's a massive school of fish down here, Tony.
The larvae.
But that's what we're after, you know. When there's not a lot of snow cover on the ice, that's just a deadly technique. We're looking at the fish on the forward-facing sonar. Travis and I are set up in our holes, and then Tony's just pushing those fish right to us. Right now, you know, when it's this early in the season, it doesn't seem like you have to use meat quite as much. So I'm just using a tungsten tubby there, 1/16 ounce jig, that's a VMC jig, and then a 13 fishing plastic, that's a BAMF. So that's kind of a deadly technique early in the season for both bluegills and crappies.
All right, bring them on.
There it is. Attaboy. Sweet.
Nice. The crappie drive worked. Pushed them all the way in.
You know, back before forward-facing sonar and stuff, you'd just end up having a ton of holes, and the fish literally avoid the holes until you actually force them to move somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before we had this technology, I think we would have just assumed that there were no fish here. you know, but all they did was just move 30 feet away before you were able to look down and see them.
Yeah, absolutely, Travis. I mean, it's a fun way to fish. You know, you're interacting, you're moving fish around to an area and corralling them into the location where you guys can catch them. I absolutely love it. I'll drill all day long for you guys.
Look at this one. Oh. That right there is why you hike through the woods to get to a lake like this. That is a monster bluegill. Oh my goodness. Oh, that is such a special fish because there are not a lot of lakes that still have these. This is a male right here, and that is the most important fish to release back into the water so the genetics stay in this lake. Super important. This is a big bluegill, which is becoming even more rare.
There we go. That feels like a gill. Some head shakes there. Oh yeah, nice fish. Oh yeah, beauty. Nice gill.
Nicely done. That is a dandy.
That's what we're chasing.
Wow. The sun is setting, got the golden light on that fish. How pretty is that?
Nice fish.
Done.
We got some beautiful crappies today, some giant gills. I absolutely love chasing fish on these backwoods lakes. I know these guys do too. If you do it right, you have the right gear, the right line species, the right jigs, and of course you're doing fish drives, you're gonna get dialed in just like we are today. There's lakes like this all over the Midwest that bode great pan fishing. It's a lot of fun to do throughout the winter months. So pick up a map, find some lakes out in the woods and just go exploring. Until next week, I'm Tony Roach with Travis Frank and Pat McSherry. I hope we helped you get dialed in.